Graham, and this is my YouTube channel, and I'm continuing my Being series. And on this episode, I'm speaking with Sally Hunt. So before I ask Sally some questions, let me set up the series for those who are wondering like what this is about. You kind of find it through the Twitter or YouTube algorithm. So let me explain what's happening here. The Being series is a combination of me learning about the person. So the person has to be interesting. I think Sally is. And also learning about their ideas. So you got to be opinionated. And I think Sally is. So she's perfect for this. Now, I don't know Sally as well as I know a lot of my other guests. So I will be learning about Sally along with the audience. So let's dive right in. Who is Sally Hunt?
Well, I'm just a regular person. I am a 41-year-old married mother of three, and I formerly worked as a public school guidance counselor. I worked as a school counselor nearby. I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and and I've lived here my whole life. And I worked as a school counselor for about 6 years, a little over 6 years, different grades, K through 12. But, more than that, probably when you ask that question, who is Sally Hunt, it's probably regarding, what I've been more known for in terms of online social media and things like that, which is just speaking up as a leftist, as a socialist, communist, anti-fascist, anti-imperialist, anti-racist. And, I've always been more left leaning, more progressive leaning. And then in more recent years, becoming more radicalized as a leftist, as an anti-capitalist. And I also have done a lot of activism for the separation of church and state. I'm also an atheist. And I've also done a lot of activism regarding sex education. I did a lot of work with a lot of parents here in St. Louis to get a Christian fundamentalist, anti-abortion, anti-birth control group called Thrive out of 16 public school districts. And they were in schools teaching abstinence only, fake sex education propaganda. So I've done a lot of work for that as well. But in more recent years, it's just been speaking up about, especially focusing on capitalism, on root causes of systems of oppression, and trying to help, raise consciousness about the root causes of oppression.
Okay, so you were a guidance counselor. In my experience, I used to be in the public school systems as well.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, most educators are indeed on the left, but they're very moderate. So did you decide after you became more radical that, okay, you know what, this bureaucracy, this school system is not for me?
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of issues with public school districts. Definitely, a lot of administrators are very. I would say conservative, but like a lot of time, yeah, like neoliberal kind of. A lot of the time, similar to how you think of corporate mainstream establishment Democrats, very much focused on what suits them in terms of power. It seems like the assistant principals all just want to do what they need to do to eventually one day be able to become a principal. And then the principals are all doing what they think they need to do to eventually go higher in terms of the administration building, ideally moving up, getting more money, maybe becoming superintendent one day, all of these things. And I've been very disheartened and I've worked at all different types of public school districts. I worked in the Ferguson Florissant School District for 4 years, which, nationally is pretty well known for the Ferguson uprising.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So I was there. That I was working as a counselor before all of that happened, before Mike Brown was killed. But and then I've also worked in a rural public school district, which is horrible. It was exactly what you would expect, like kind of in that kind of MAGA Trump country Republican area, in terms of like they wouldn't let me. I had a sticker in my office that said LGBT safe space. so that kids would know, if they want to come out or if they want to talk to me as a counselor, that I was a safe person to talk to. And the principal made me take that down. And they got mad at a Facebook post that I had supporting Black Lives Matter and, and being opposed to cops murdering Black people when Philando Castile was killed. But anyway, so definitely there was that sort of stuff in the rural school district, but even in, a more diverse school district with, more people of color, it wasn't exactly the same. It wasn't as bad as that rural, mostly white school district, but definitely still didn't seem to be putting the students' needs first. Very, like, you could call it political, but like I say, it seems like it's more about everybody, like the administrators just caring about not wanting to rock the boat as long as they, keep people, parents and the community quiet and happy, doing whatever they need to appease people, even if it's not what's in the best interest of the students. That's the problem that I mainly saw, just not wanting to rock the boat, not wanting to actually do what needs to be done to actually help the students. And that's been pretty universal, though, across the board. Very, very disheartening.
Okay. Well, I mean, I feel you on that a little bit. So my first career was as a school teacher. So a lot of my friends from college, at least undergrad, they went into education, and yeah, we're all pretty middle of the road Democrats. My sister is also a teacher now.
Mhm.
She's pretty middle of the road Democrat, and so what that often means is our understanding of the world can be very different than someone who's on the farther to the left. In fact, it's very rare that now it's changing today. It's changing today, but there was a time when not many people talked about white supremacy, right?
Mhm.
Of course, it is
Mhm.
changing now quite a bit, and I think that's why a lot of there's been so much pushback against it. But certainly for the last couple of decades or so, not many educators are walking around talking about white supremacy. So,
Mhm.
what is that in your mind?
Well, when I talk about what is white supremacy, I just explain to people who don't seem to understand that um, white supremacy and racism, essentially, that's the same thing, because uh, they are because of capitalism. They are because of the profit motive. They are because of greed, and it's always been the same system. The system has evolved over time, and kind of the way you see that it manifests itself in everyday life, it evolves, it changes a little bit, of course. And of course, like slavery, the way chattel slavery as it used to be is obviously not legal now, although of course we still have the prison system, we have slavery there. But my point is just kind of getting back to answering your question, that we have to talk about why did this idea, the concept of race, why does it exist? Why was it created? Because of course it's not biological, it's not scientific. There's no race gene, and so what it is, it was a function of, there were these white men who wanted to have free labor. So it has to do with, they wanted to have these workers do work, obviously for free, not paying them. So slavery. And so as they, kidnapped, stole Africans, and start having chattel slavery, then this concept of race evolves to be a reason, a justification that they can use to say why the children of these enslaved people will also be enslaved themselves. Why then these kids that are born are going to be born into slavery. And so this whole concept of race, that is what it was used for, to have this reason to have free labor. And by doing that, by saying like, okay, so we are this white race, and that means this and that. That means that we are superior in all of these things. And then they are this other thing, these Africans, well, they're actually this black race. And what that means is all of these other things, of course, dehumanizing them, for the purpose of subjugating them for this free labor. And so just the more they could, otherize them, dehumanize them, the more they could feel better about what they were doing and have this justification, this excuse. And it all makes sense, like when you, because for a long time, like I said, I've always been, more progressive leaning, but it really wasn't until recent years that I made that connection that capitalism itself is the root cause of of all of this shit, of all of these, problems that we're dealing with in modern society. And so that profit motive that creates that's the reason for the greed to get more money, to get more profits, capitalist profits. And so capitalists will stop at nothing. They will exploit to any degree that they are allowed to get away with. And of course, that's what we saw with chattel slavery. And so racism has always been the system that existed for white people to make more money and more profits, more wealth. And of course, it's rooted in anti-Blackness. But, then obviously it's evolved over time as well. But it always goes back to that core function, that is what it is. And globally, that's what it is, because, of course, white people have colonized, the globe all around the world. And we've got an imperialism, bombing, occupying countries all around the world. And so it ultimately always goes back to serving that same function. And that is always this system of racism is for the purpose of making, wealth, profits for white people and for privileging white people, of course. And then, of course, whiteness, obviously, whiteness, this changes over time, the social construct. And it's interesting because I'm Jewish, I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. And so, of course, I know I am seen as a white person nowadays. If I go out, obviously I'm white. But then at the same time, there are Nazis who, of course, would take away that whiteness. They would say I'm not white. And it's that conditional whiteness. So.
Okay, let me ask you something here. I'm going to play the skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
You started by talking about the roots of white supremacy being in chattel slavery. And you know what? I think I get that, because you need free labor, and so you need to race another group, right? Like make another group such that the laws that apply to you don't apply to them. And so race helped that particular economic system. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But now we're in a post-industrial society. So how does the profit motive today perpetuate racism?
Well, great question. So the thing is that the system has never, it was never undone. So basically, it's like the impact. So the impact of slavery, and then you've got, of course, an ongoing the impact of Jim Crow laws, of redlining, of all of the horrific state violence. Of course, we continue to see the state violence against Black people and brown people, but especially Black people. And all of these things, though, over time, there was never any time when it was okay, let's start fresh. Everything now is going to go ahead and be equal. Obviously not. White people still have this generational wealth that goes back to the days of chattel slavery, and keeps getting passed down. And and of course, Black people continue to have a lot less generational wealth, a lot less household wealth on average, quite a bit less. And of course, going back to how I mentioned redlining, home ownership, of course, has been the easiest way to get wealth, and for families. And we still see that is inequitable. And so all of these things, nothing has changed, because it's, we just kind of are the years go by, but there has never been a time when anyone with power, the people who actually are in charge, who write the laws, that the government, those in power, have never actually changed anything and made things equitable, because
Okay.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we're just kind
Mhm.
of doing the same thing. Like I said, it evolves over time. But I also, and I didn't even, really talk in detail, of course, about the prison system and mass incarceration and cops. It's always been the same thing where, um, since Black people were racialized, and yeah, originally it was this purpose of free labor, slavery, but those ideas have been so firmly, planted in white people's minds and in the people in power's minds at this point. Those ideas hold on their own, unfortunately. And of course, so that's the thing. So white supremacy, not just as the system, but as these beliefs, it is the norm. It is basically like the default, in terms of, like, people don't even realize that that impacts the way they think, because, like, they think, oh, like, good schools and bad schools, and good, neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods, and of course who's living there and why. And people tend to not really, like, ask those questions. But I
Okay.
will
All right.
just
Hold on.
really.
Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Let me summarize in my head what I'm thinking.
Sure.
Um and see if it jives with what you're saying about
Sure.
because I asked about, how do you connect white supremacy in today's economic system? One of the critiques I have about liberalism, and a lot of people on the left have this critique, is that you want to say, okay, everyone has the same rights, right? And so that makes everyone equal. Okay. And that's kind of the core idea with liberalism, right? Okay, give everyone the same rights, and then, let people kind of live their lives. The problem with that approach is, if you've had a system in the past which has created inequality, you can't just say, okay,
Right.
everyone has the same rights now, so everything's cool,
Right.
because people
Exactly.
aren't equal. They're starting from different places. That you mentioned
Exactly.
wealth. I mean, this is a
Exactly.
part of it. You mentioned these ideas in our heads about inferiority, superiority, and those things are still there. And so if you don't, and so it might be that the original purpose for creating race is no longer with us, especially post 1965, I would say. Still, we're dealing with the effects of that today.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so white supremacy probably perpetuates itself over time, depending on what we mean by white supremacy. Sometimes I'm never entirely sure what people mean. I don't think it means that there are these people walking around saying, I'm better, white folks saying, I'm better than these people of color. Some people probably do believe that, of course, but I'm thinking it's more just a system that people live in, and don't necessarily realize that that
Sure.
that they are perpetuating that system by not challenging it, right? I think that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
the way that I sort of think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. And I think it wouldn't even, like, if someone just had these beliefs, if it was just about beliefs, and it's outside of the context of this society, there would be no power behind those beliefs. But I mean, that's the thing. Of course, it has to do with power, and it has to do with systemic, institutionalized, structural power, societal power, society at large. And so that's the problem. It's about the institutions, it's about the systems, it's about the way our entire society is structured.
Mhm.
And so that's what a lot of people miss when they think it's just this individual set of beliefs, because that in and of itself wouldn't really mean as much. It wouldn't be able to cause the harm that it causes. But it's about the powerful systems, institutions, backing up those white supremacist, racist beliefs. And therein lies the problem. And then also, just to add on, because you were asking about, as it pertains to the economic system, nowadays what it functions as is a really helpful way for the rich capitalists, the ruling class, to keep the working class divided against itself, so that, you know we have we because they don't want solidarity among the working class, obviously. And so it's about making sure that the working class is going to keep fighting amongst ourselves, keep hating each other, not unifying against the common enemy, holding us all down, obviously holding some of us down more than others, of course, as you know, race has to do with that. But regardless, all of us are exploited and oppressed under this system of capitalism. And but you have like these beliefs of racism, white supremacy are so deeply ingrained, to the point where it's really, really difficult for people to unlearn, deprogram from that crap. And then, you know, so we're kind of fighting amongst each other, and that serves the very, very rich capitalists, you know, main goal, that can just keep doing what they're doing, which is taking and hoarding as much wealth as possible, while the masses of working class people just keep suffering and struggling every single day just to survive.
Okay, now I want to ask you something. I'm going to bring up a window here. Let me see if I can get this right. Now, this is a meme that you shared, and this is how we met. Somehow this came into my timeline. And so you were you put this meme up, and you got a lot of pushback.
Mm-hmm.
So first I'm going to ask you, what were you trying to say with this meme here?
Yeah, so first of all, I didn't make it. I found this on Instagram. I don't even remember who originally posted it, but to me, as soon as I saw it, I was just like, it wasn't even meant to be funny to me. I just was like, oh, that's spot on. Like that's a good analogy. And the reason, so you asked me what did I mean when I shared it? Well, what I mean is what I interpreted as when I looked at it, which is just pretty clear and simple, saying that, so those two characters, the Samuel L. Jackson, Stephen from Django Unchained, and Uncle Ruckus character from Boondocks, they're both known for being vicious and vile to other Black people. So that's commonly, you know, they're pretty well-known characters at this point in pop culture, I think. And so we see them, we know, like, they're pretty, you know, you could also just, I don't know if people use the word evil, but they act in evil ways to other Black people, abusive to other Black people, oppressive, you know, helping enable systems of oppression, of racism, white supremacy, treating other Black people like shit, right? And that is exactly what Clarence Thomas does. That is what he's known for. Now, the only difference here is Clarence Thomas actually has a great deal of power. So I'm more open to that critique.
And he's real.
Yeah, obviously he's real. Well,
yeah.
And unfortunately he's real, because he fucking destroys lives. And I'm saying bad word. And I didn't ask is it okay if I cuss
it's
on
fine.
this? I don't know if you're okay. I realized I should have asked you that before. But the thing is that, yeah, Clarence Thomas, obviously he's a real person. You know, and I can't do like the colorblind bullshit. Like, that's, you know, it's a very like kind of right wing, like actually a racist talking point, right? To say like, oh, let's all be colorblind. Like, let's pretend like we don't see color. We all see color. We all see that Clarence Thomas is a Black man. You know, we all see I'm a white woman, obviously. And I know that's what a lot of people took issue with, that I'm a white person sharing.
Right. That's the pushback that
right.
you as a white person are not in a position to post this kind of meme, which is painting Clarence Thomas as a stereotype.
Well, but
it would be like me doing some kind of stereotypes about Jewish people and putting it on Twitter.
So what is the stereotype here?
Well, the Django Unchained character and Uncle Ruckus are seen as Uncle Toms. And you're saying that Clarence Thomas is an Uncle Tom, which is really seen as a negative thing. It's not a positive thing. So
let me push back on that just a little bit, because I've never used that term. I don't go around calling anyone I don't even want to say it because I know it's going to end up getting clipped. Somebody's going to act like I'm going around saying it. But
Very
so,
smart.
yeah, right. But the thing is, so I could, when I see those two characters, as I already said, before, what are those two characters known for? I understand. So some people will say the term that you just said.
Mm-hmm.
They look at them and they think in their heads that term. So okay, and if you think that, then that's fine. You think that, it's kind of like, I think like a lot of Black people also often, of course, say the N word. Probably also think the N word, right? I don't say it. I don't think it. And but anyway, my point is that you look at something and think that term, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine. But it's not just about some very simple term, but rather there's so much nuance here in terms of, it's not just that those two characters are known for that term. Like when you watch the movie Django Unchained, for example, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's pretty moving and it's pretty, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson does such an amazing job with that character. Like it's hard not to just hate that character, right? I mean, he's vicious. He's so cruel to Kerry Washington's character as well. That's the thing. So it's like, not only is he treating other Black people like shit, he's treating this Black woman like shit. And he helped the enslaver, the Leonardo DiCaprio character, like really viciously abuse her. And that definitely lines up with Clarence Thomas, not only
You know
treating
more. You
Black.
remember more about that movie than I do.
Yeah,
Actually, I
I
don't
actually saw.
remember any of that stuff. I need to
I
watch it
saw.
again, I guess.
Yeah, that might be part of why I wanted to share this meme, because I just saw it within the last year. Like I saw it maybe 6 months ago. I watched it, so it's kind of fresh in my head. So when I look at that Samuel L. Jackson character, I don't just see that term. I see his actions, the character's actions. So it's possible if someone doesn't know the details of his character, they might maybe perceive this differently. So there's that. And yeah, like I said, Clarence Thomas,
Yeah.
not only shitty as hell to Black people, but obviously shitty as hell to women, disproportionately Black women, of course, who are the most impacted negatively by the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And of course, we also know Clarence Thomas shitty as hell to LGBTQ people and Indigenous people. I mean, you name it, every marginalized group. I mean, all of these conservative justices are. And, we can talk about them here in a second, too, because, of course, I know that I was criticized for not talking about them. But just dealing with this meme. So anyway, so there's the Samuel L. Jackson character, which I just talked about. And then you've got the Uncle Ruckus character. Again, you say, oh, it's that term. He's known for that term. But like I would ask,
Yeah.
just let's dig a little deeper.
I
Well,
mean, it's in the title, in his character's name, Uncle. They just said Ruckus instead of
oh
his
sure,
mom. Yeah,
sure,
yeah,
sure,
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely not just a coincidence. I'm with
Oh,
you on that. I don't disagree. But but the thing is, I even if you see interviews with Aaron Magruder, the creator of Boondocks, the creator of this character, like I was just reading an article, an interview with him today, just kind of, for a refresher before we did this, before I talked to you here today. And, and I knew that he had said this, but I just kind of wanted to see the details of what he said. And sure enough, like he's talking about how that Uncle Ruckus character is based on a very unfortunate real world phenomenon. Like that is a thing that actually that you see happening, where there really are Black people who are stuck in this old mindset. Like Aaron Magruder himself even says something about, it's like they're stuck in the 1800s. And and because of white supremacy, of course we know that that's the root cause. Obviously they are stuck in this mindset of hating other Black people, being anti-Black, treating other Black people very badly. And so, and when this, it was a Vice interview that they did with Aaron Magruder, where he was talking about this, and it was a few years ago. So he was talking about Herman Cain. because it was like right after Herman Cain had run
Okay.
for
Yep.
president
Yep.
for
Black
for
conservative.
the
Hmm.
Republican nomination. So he was like, he even said in this interview, he was like, yeah, Herman Cain is a real life example of Uncle Ruckus. And of course
Okay.
we,
All right. You're right. Let me say this here. I have
yeah,
two
go ahead.
thoughts in my head at the same
Uh-huh.
time. Okay.
Uh-huh.
One is that I saw a lot of the back and forths when you posted this from a lot of people. It got a lot of play. And what I admired about you was your ability to say, okay, I posted this because a lot of people, they don't have a lot of backbone. They really bend to social pressures. So I like the fact that you were um, willing and able to defend why you posted it. That's the good thing. The bad thing would be, so please continue, and you'll probably end up seeing me do the same thing because I say a lot of things people don't like. So that's a good thing. The bad thing would be you are justifying why you're putting it up here or why you posted it. Um, but people are telling you that, wait, hold on. You as a white person should think about your place in posting this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not quite sure if you even agree with that.
I mean, I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I
All
don't.
right.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So, and that's where we, the people who were upset about me posting it, I definitely see where they're coming from. But, it's just, we're not going to agree on that, because my thing about that is that each and every one of us needs to aggressively speak out against white supremacy, racism, which is a system. And it's about, you know, we need to be calling out and working against the powerful, the rich and powerful, those who hold the power, who are actually enforcing the policies that hurt the masses of marginalized people, of working class people, of black and brown people, people of color, LGBTQ people, women, etc. So my whole um my belief about this is that it truth is truth is truth. Okay? So whether you say it or I say it, the same exact thing here is true. Like, Clarence Thomas is an oppressor who absolutely causes extreme amounts of harm to disproportionately to black people, to women, to you name it, every marginalized group, working class people. Now, so a lot of people, they were like, oh, well, why don't you focus on these other justices, the other white
Mm-hmm.
conservative justices?
Yep. Yep.
And so the thing is, so but even if we want to talk about that, like, that doesn't address the meme itself. Like, so I happen to come across this particular meme. I happen to see it on Instagram, and I'm like, that's an accurate meme. And so I've shared that meme. So asking, well, why not also talk about these other justices? That's fine and well and good, and we can discuss that. But that does not actually take anything away from the meme itself. Like, that doesn't make the meme that I happened to come across any less true. But I will also just add that Clarence Thomas himself was just in the news, just him. So after the Roe versus Wade ruling, after it was overturned,
Mm-hmm.
I've been seeing all these articles about how he specifically has been saying he wants to go after, other marginalized groups' rights. He want, or like birth control. He wants to possibly go after gay marriage. He wants to possibly go after, right? Like, he specifically has written that. He has said that. So that was his voice. So he had also was fresh in my mind from that article, and fresh in a lot of people's minds. Also, he's been on this court since I was a little kid. I mean, I remember, and let's also remember how he got there. We know he sexually harassed Anita Hill. That's abundantly clear. Absolutely, it was proved. And fuck Joe Biden for being way too nice to Clarence Thomas in his hearing and treating Anita Hill like shit. Joe Biden's been basically conservative right winger his entire political career. But anyway, put that to the
Uh-huh.
side. But so
Well,
I'm just
wait,
saying, so
wait, wait. That's actually a
yeah,
that's actually a good segue,
uh-huh,
Sally, to the next thing I want to ask you about. Okay, I think we can put the Clarence Thomas thing
okay,
to bed, and thank you
okay.
for explaining yourself and so thoroughly. I gotta say, I mean, if you've left guidance counseling, if you want to go into advocacy, you could, or maybe you could be a lawyer or something. You really do a good job of defending yourself.
Ah,
Okay, so now
well,
you
it's not
mentioned
about.
that Joe
Let me just
Biden.
be clear. I'm not trying to defend myself. Like, it's not even. I just want that to be clear. I'm not trying to defend myself. I honestly, it's not about me. It really isn't. It never has been about me. Like, this is about like what is causing harm to the masses of people, to marginalized people, to Black people, to working class. You see what I'm saying? Like, I just want that to, and in this case with that meme, it's Clarence Thomas. He's causing extreme amounts of harm, destroying lives, and it's not okay. And we all need to say so. So anyway, go
Okay.
ahead.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you said that Joe Biden. I mean, you called him a conservative, not just for his soft dealings with Clarence Thomas during those hearings, but also now. I'm assuming.
Oh yeah.
So okay. What is wrong with American liberals?
Right. Oh gosh.
What's wrong with me? I mean, maybe I should say, what's wrong with me, Sal?
What's wrong with you? Oh, so you
I
identify as a
am
liberal?
American liberal.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. It seems like you've agreed with some things that I've said that are
Sure,
more
sure, sure.
leftist than liberal. Um, but I
Oh,
think,
so maybe there's a problem with the definition. So I think when I'm saying liberal, I'm kind of, so yes, I did critique the kind of classical liberal view of rights. That is true.
yeah.
But here when I'm saying liberal, I guess I'm just meaning a leftist, a
Okay. So,
person who votes for the Democratic Party.
all right. So,
Mm.
this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Liberals are not leftists.
Okay.
So, I'm a leftist, and definitely I'm not a liberal. I used to consider myself liberal, but like the more I have learned, the more I realize, fuck that. No, not a liberal. So liberals are more pro status quo. Liberals are pro capitalism. They are in favor of maintaining this class based hierarchical society. Liberals are pro imperialism. Like, they don't really, usually they don't really even pay much attention to, call it foreign policy, but like, which countries are we bombing, which people around the world are we massacring, occupying. Liberals tend to support Israel no matter what, don't give a shit about Palestinians, don't even think about the fact that Palestinians are human beings. Liberals tend to be pro police. Liberals tend to, like Joe Biden at his State of the Union address said, fund the police more, fund them, fund them, fund them. Very
That's right. Yeah,
typical
yeah.
liberal stuff, where even if they say Black Lives Matter and they say they're against police violence and stuff like that, at the end of the day, they don't want to do anything. They don't want to defund the police. They don't want to actually do anything to change anything. They want to uphold the same, carceral state, police state, this fascist
I
nightmare
see.
dystopia.
I see.
Yeah. So liberals
So
are just more, and they tend to defend the Democrats no matter what. It's more that they are just anti-Republican, but they're not really pro anything except like they're loyal to corporate establishment Democrats no matter what they do.
I see. That's interesting. Okay, so is it fair to say that liberals are on the left in comparison to conservatives, but not leftists?
So the way
I mean,
yeah, no, it's a good question. The way I describe this is, I would say liberals are center right. Because capitalism itself is a right wing system. There is nothing left wing about capitalism. And I mean, you know, because capitalism requires poverty. Capitalism requires people, you know, the masses of people to suffer and struggle just to survive. And right now we're in late stage capitalism. This is capitalism doing what it does, you know, like a small number of massive corporations just taking over, and basically controlling so many aspects of our lives, having the power over all of us. And you think of monopolies. I mean, monopolies, that's just a part of capitalism too, because what's the end goal of, you know, competition? Obviously it's to win, so somebody's going to win. But anyway, my point is, so capitalism, right wing system, you know, imperialism, you know, warmongering, all of that, that's part of capitalism. And the violence, and police, cops, you know, cops uphold this entire system. Cops prevent the working class from revolting and taking, you know, taking back their power. And so cops, so being pro cop, being pro capitalism, being pro, you know, war, military, all of these things, pro Israel, pro Zionist, all of these things, those are very, very right wing positions. So capitalism is a right wing system. Liberals are center right. They absolutely are on the right. But conservatives, especially nowadays, I mean, they are neo fascists. They are just extreme right wing.
Extreme right. All right. Yeah. Let me say, for those who come across this, it would I mean, search for Pew political typology, and you can take like a test, like a survey or something, to figure out where you fit on this spectrum. Now, this is different than what Sally is saying, but I think it's instructive for people because I did it, and my sense would be that Sally would be the progressive left, and I know I fit in the establishment liberal. That's kind of where that's kind of where I am. Yeah. I took the survey, and I'm the establishment liberal. But the things that you point out, it's interesting, Sally, because I have probably moved more to the center in just the past 9 or 10 months.
Oh, wow.
And it's not because I disagree with any of the things that you're talking about. So the things you say that's wrong with American liberals, the supporting of capitalism, I think that is problematic. I'm very leftist when it comes to our economy, dealing with racism, trans issues, these types of things. I fully support. The reason why I've become a little more center is sort of tactics. Like I'm getting the sense that the fact is most Americans, as you point out, support this system. And if we're going to deal with some of the issues that we have in our society as people on the left, we have to meet those folks where they are. And so I've been very frustrated with the tone that often comes from, I guess, the progressive left, I guess. Not disagreeing with the goals, but just the tactics, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that, but I think that if your focus is on telling the people demanding justice, you know, equity, liberation, empowerment of the most exploited, marginalized, oppressed people, if you choose to focus on telling those people to stop, or trying to get those people to be quiet or be nicer, or tone policing, I'm not saying you're necessarily doing that, but like liberals do that a lot, then that I feel like then maybe do some reflection about what are you trying to do? Because if we're the ones that are out here loudly screaming like, okay, this planet is being killed, like we're all facing extinction because global warming is real, and this is an actual existential threat because of these massive corporations that are just like a small few corporations that are like the main destroyers of the environment, of the planet. You know, there's that. But then all these other things, so like homelessness, for example. Like I like to mention this, like all these unhoused people. I mean, there are huge numbers of people with no home, no roof over their head, no money, no food to eat. Like, how is that acceptable? So like, let alone then, I mentioned like imperialism, like we're literally committing mass murders around the world, like all the time, destroying lives. And I don't think that we are superior just because we happen to be born in the United States. Like, but anyway, my point is like, I mean, the horrors and atrocities of the things that our government, that rich capitalists in power are doing. Like, I feel like if people actually start, like, really pay attention to the details, like they would be screaming louder, louder than the loudest people that you think leftists that you don't like how angry they seem to be or whatever. Because at the end of the day, it's not about like the tactics. It's about like this shit needs to stop. And I feel like like my whole life, like all of this really fucked up all these fucked up things that are going on in the United States. I mean, not just United States, but particularly United States, have been normalized to a degree like they shouldn't be normalized. Like finally we have like these, protests, all of these like Black Lives Matter protests, anti-police violence, and we still see it happening. Of course, I mean, uh, Jalen Walker just the other day, of course, 60 shots murdering this black man. I mean, it's incredibly fucked up. And again, mentioned mass incarceration earlier. It's almost like we leftists are constantly being, it's like gaslighting, like, oh, things aren't really that bad. Just try to go to business as usual, business as usual. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like in a way that's what you're saying, although I'm sure you don't mean to sound like that. And I say it with respect. I say it with respect. Like I'm not, because like,
oh, that's fine.
like I said, I used to be more liberal. Like I used to, I used to just be like, oh, vote blue no matter who. And it's really within the past 5 years or so that I started like really paying attention to the details of how corrupt and, how the Democrats are. Like they don't give a shit about us because they take these huge bribes from billionaires and multimillionaires and corporations, and they serve them. They serve their donors, their rich donors. And it's just like, this shit is not okay. So like our tactics shouldn't even matter, because at the end of the day, like things are only getting worse. And I fear for what's going to happen in the United States, because it is late stage capitalism. More and more mass shootings are happening. And I'm not even thinking like that gun control is going to change anything at this point, because I think that it's so much, we're in so deep in how people feel, isolated, they feel disconnected, they feel alienated, all across the board. And I think that that's what capitalism creates. It's very unnatural. Like we're not in this together. Like everyone out for themselves. Like I got mine, go fuck yourself. That kind of, bootstraps, that whole kind of mentality is the problem, because the actual class-based society is immoral and unjust at its core. The greed that comes with that profit motive, is the problem. Like we're not seen as human beings with worth and value. Like we are just there to provide, to go to work or to buy things, to make rich people even richer. Like I feel like we got to get at the root causes. That to me is another big difference between leftists and liberals. Like we leftists want to focus on root causes of all of this shit, and I feel like liberals only want to talk about symptoms, but not the actual disease. Not like just constantly putting band-aids over a massive gaping wound. And like we leftists are like, that's not going to do anything. We have to actually get in there and heal the wound, because these band-aids aren't actually stopping anything. They're not doing anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right.
I know that's a lot.
It's okay. We are up at the hour, and you have to go and handle your business. So there are other things that I want to talk to you about, but we didn't get to it. So maybe in the future you can come back on and we can try again.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I know my answers are always like very, very long, so I apologize.
Totally fine. Sally Hunt, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was good talking to you, Rod. I appreciate it.